Welcome to Open Science, where we open up science and bring it into the real world. Hosted by Jay and Nick, we dive into the science that shapes our lives, whether it's in the lab, in the industry, or right in our daily routines. With a special focus on health and innovation, we're here to explore the breakthroughs, the challenges, and the unexpected ways science impacts us all. Let's get into it.
Welcome everybody to Opensciences.ch, the podcast where we explore science and bring it to the masses. Today, I'm joined with Jay. There's no one. It's just the two of us today, isn't it, Jay?
It is.
So we're going to be discussing what we are doing with Opensciences.ch and why we're doing this podcast. Alongside that, we're going to talk about our sister business, the Life Science Network, and what that is about, as well as maybe some brief background about who we are and I suppose why we're doing things. So, evening, Jay.
Good evening, Nick. Hello.
Hi. So the first question I want to ask is about Open Sciences. So what are these podcasts about? What are we doing?
Good question. Thanks, Nick. For me, I have a real deep passion for science. It was something that, when we were in school, the Bunsen burner, the biology books that had people graffitiing all over, men's and women's private parts, it wasn't really very appealing to me. As I got older, however, and little things started to happen to me personally, I started to get more and more interested in science in general. Obviously, the health side is important, but the how it all works for me is the science. And one of the things that I wanted to bring is scientific topics to the masses. If I'd have had my opportunity, I would have called it opening science, but someone already took that, so kudos to them. But what I want to do is I want to open science out to the masses, and I want to make it translatable to people like you and me. So that's really kind of my motivation behind it. What about you, Nick?
So thanks for asking, Jay. For me, the topic of science and it's always been a really interesting one. I seem to be able to absorb stuff into my mind, and kind of those facts and things that I have in there. I'm not 100% certain all of them are correct, but I've always had a bit of an inquisitive mind, especially about scientific matters and things like that. I find it fascinating, kind of the things that we're able to achieve right in the past and at the moment. So I think kind of these podcasts are really interesting for me because it won't just be you and me talking. We'll be bringing some experts on board to kind of debunk myths, perhaps, and to learn more about what innovations and things are happening within the scientific community at the moment. And for me, I find that absolutely fascinating. Kind of what is the next breakthroughs and things that are coming on? What are people working on? And I think that's really, really, really interesting, especially when you combine that with everyday questions like, why you go bald or what's happening in the world of anything really. So kind of like from my perspective, I find it a very interesting topic. Moving on from that, as I mentioned previously, we've also got the lifesciencenetwork.com to talk about, and I kind of and this was credit where it's due. This is your idea.
Yeah. So
I'd love you just to kind of give us a brief overview of what the Life Science Network is and what it's intended to do.
This is born out of two things, really. I suppose the first one was I got to the age of 25, 26. I got a little small patch that came in my head. I first went to the doctor, the GP, when I lived in England, and they were like, "You might have ringworm." Did a load of tests and realised I had a small autoimmune disease. I don't know why I called it small. It's not necessarily small, and I kind of naturally try and play it down, which turned out to be psoriasis. So that affected me massively. in my late 20s and early 30s. I gained a little bit of weight, or quite a lot of weight. I lost a little bit of confidence because I had it in my nails, I had it in my hair, I had it in various different places throughout my body. And I'd go to see a doctor who'd say, use a little bit of cream, but don't use too much because it'll thin the body out. And I was kind of quite fortunate that I managed to move out of the UK National Health Service, which was all good. Don't get me wrong, I would never knock the NHS, but I moved to a country where I am now, Switzerland, that is completely private. Went to see a specialist very quickly who gave me probably the worst drug I could ever have for me at that time, which was an old drug called methotrexate. And I would have to inject this into my chest every Friday, into my chest. Makes it sound like it's here, doesn't it? Into my stomach every Friday, and I'd have to take it on every Friday because every Saturday I felt ill, and I didn't want to be ill for work. The needle was about that big. For audio listeners, it was big, and they actually decided that it wasn't, I wasn't taking it very seriously because I didn't want to take something that made me ill and throw a massive needle into my stomach. And I then met a professor who was the first person in University Spital in Basel who asked me how I felt. And he then introduced me to a new, I was going to say therapy, new drug that was coming out of a major pharmaceutical company. I then went through the period of taking that, and within 8 weeks, all my psoriasis had cleared. It suddenly started to dawn on me, Nick, that someone somewhere spoke to somebody about, I think they call it in the scientific community, an unmet need, or they found a need that was out there. Scientists started to collaborate. They went through a period of research and into development, clinical trials, etc., to reach me. Coincidingly, I was working, finding top talent for the scientific world, meeting all these cool people. And what I want to do through the Life Science Network is, I don't want to be pompous and say I want to promote faster collaboration in science that's going to affect the man or the woman on the street, but I do. Because the world is so big, and I appreciate there are experts who know other experts in their field, but it may be a question around how does a piece of machinery work? I've got a problem. Does anybody want to help me? It might be, I don't know who I need to talk to. And I would like to foster a community of people who can talk to each other. So that's where I came up with the idea. And then I thought, I know a guy who can help me build a community. So that's when I knocked on your door, Nick, because I think you should say this for yourself, because I think that's what you're pretty good at. Fair?
Well, I hope so. For those listening, so Jay and I have known each other for many years. We work together on a platform, a marketplace platform. And, Jay swanned off to Switzerland to go and work in the pharmaceutical industry. And my journey took me on a path around building marketplaces. And so Jay obviously kind of knocked on my door and said, Nick, can you help me build a marketplace? And we did some looking around at the ones that were available at the moment, within more generic ones and ones which are more specific. And we recognized that kind of the more generic ones, which is kind of, I won't name them, but the kind of a platform which is widely used, isn't quite ticking the boxes for the community that it's trying to serve. It's trying to serve everybody rather than trying to serve a specific community. So, the idea that I don't think it is pompous to say that we want to make the scientific community collaborate better and move faster for the good of those that rely on it, which is everybody. But also we want to be able to kind of infuse people into the industry. And I think kind of going back to the podcast, the purpose of this podcast really is just to scratch an itch around being inquisitive around science and being inquisitive around developments in science for the layman. Because, I know very, very little about stuff, although I like to pretend I know lots about science, but I don't. you know marginally more than me, but the people coming onto the podcast that we're going to be talking to and the experts that we're going to be talking to are going to be people with their finger on the pulse of the cutting edge. That was too many different examples of things, but like they've got these individuals are top of their game, and will be able to kind of cast, you know, a bit of light into what is kind of maybe a bit more of a mysterious world for most people.
Yeah, and you said something a second ago. You know, you don't know a lot, but yet you did say, you know, scratch an itch to a psoriasis sufferer, which was
I didn't mean to do that. I mean, that's obviously something in the back of my mind.
I'll take it. It worked. I also would like Open Sciences not only to translate to the layman or the lay person, but I also want, you know, in the spirit of Armando Iannucci, I want a little bit of satire that goes with it. I want a little bit of fun that goes with it, because I think that science is really cool. And sometimes it doesn't look that cool, but it's really cool. So, you know, the healthcare element is a huge part of the science. But, you know, over time, I would love to expand that out into, you know, why are the colors of the rainbow the colors of the rainbow? You know, and clearly that's just one off the top of my head, and let's not go there yet. But there's so many fascinating things that are happening that are down to science. And if we can educate one person after we've been educated, it's kind of that is what I'm trying to achieve. And I think you share that goal, Nick.
Oh, I definitely do. And I just to maybe tell a little story about stuff. So we both have kids, and what comes with children is homework, as you might imagine. And sitting down and kind of going through that homework, especially within the sciences with the children, it isn't always as engaging as you might necessarily hope it would be.
Yeah.
So, you know, kind of coming from a childish standpoint, you know, if we can engage people that find a subject maybe relatively dry and make it more interesting for people, which, because it is fascinating really when you kind of dig down into it, then happy days.
Yeah, I think just to jump off the back of that, on the back of that, not jump off the back of that, if I get the words right. You know, the kids are the future. Technology is moving so quickly. You know, they're going to be exposed to so much kind of medical technology in the future, which will be advantageous, and some of it maybe not. But again, if we can offer any form of guidance to those guys going through their formative years, let's do that. And I'm certainly trying to do that. They may not necessarily be the listeners to this pod, but moms and dads will. And again, if we can promote cool science, let's promote it, because it's everywhere. So I think that's.
I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think kind of as a mission, you know, making science move faster through the life science now.
Yeah.
You know, it's important for us to engage all different parts of that, whether it be kids, and you know, you and I have got plans to look at events and things like that, which involve kind of kids and you know, making sure that they're engaged within what we're doing, as well as the scientific community itself in a more, well, obviously advanced professional way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like a plan as well. So thank you everybody for listening. This is one podcast of many, which I hope you can have listened to the other. So please subscribe, and you'll hear kind of probably less from me and Jay and more from professionals telling us their opinions about what's happening in the market at the moment and their slant on you know, the innovations and things that are out there in the market at the moment.
Like it.
Dave, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of Open Sciences. We hope you learned something new and got a fresh perspective on the science around us. If you've enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe, share and leave us a review. Got a topic you'd like for us to explore? Reach out, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the scientific world around you.